Hi guys, welcome to today's support surgery on preparing for student life. I am Rosa, I'm the graduate intern for the west of Cumbria, and we also have Abby with us today.
Hi guys, I'm Abby and I'm the graduate intern for the Furness area.
Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen and we'll get cracking. So like we said, today's presentation is going to be about preparing for student life. We're going to talk a little bit about if you're planning to go to uni in autumn, if you've got your place and you're kind of getting geared up to go, or if you're just starting to think about what student life might be like and thinking about all the things that you might want to consider when preparing for that. So firstly, Hello Future is a partnership of all these organizations you can see on the screen right now, with the shared goal of getting you guys into higher education, whether that's universities or higher and degree apprenticeships. We come into schools to do World of Work days, we do residential trips and cultural trips like to BBC News. And since we've gone online, we also do a lot of e-courses and online presentations, which we'll talk a bit more about at the end.
So the aims and outcomes of today's session are going to be to help you to understand your university options and how you're able to research them and understand as well what tools are out there. So we're going to show you some websites, also to explore what is important when you're considering of going on to university or a higher degree apprenticeship. So we're going to cover stuff like costs, travel, finding somewhere to live, that kind of thing. And also to understand that this is a big decision, but that we can overcome any barriers that we face by considering all the elements of this decision that you're making and kind of breaking it down a little bit into steps.
So firstly, we thought we'd start off by doing a bit of a vote and kind of seeing what different people thought about a couple of things that you might consider when you're moving to your new place to study. So we're going to kind of talk through these options, and you at home might want to think about them as well. And we'll just kind of share our own experiences from having to consider these things when we were going to university. So the first one is, where would you like to study? So when you were kind of thinking about higher education, Abby, where was it that you thought you'd like to study?
So I knew for me that I wanted to move a little bit away from home. So home for me is Lancaster. And I knew I kind of wanted to go to a new city. I didn't want to be on a campus university. I kind of wanted to be in the heart of a city. But I also knew that I didn't want to go too far away. So that kind of led me to looking at places like Manchester, Liverpool and Leeds, which I ended up picking in the end and went to the University of Leeds.
Cool.
So Rosa, when you were looking for somewhere to live, when you started university, where was it that you wanted to live?
So I actually went to my second choice uni, so I only found out that I was going there on results day, which meant that I was then kind of put into like a clearing thing for accommodation. And so I didn't really get to choose very specifically what hall I wanted to go to or what area really. I got to choose whether it had an ensuite bathroom or as a shared bathroom, whether it was a single or a double room. So there were options for you to share a room with another person. And I got to choose the general location. So there were different areas. I went to Bristol University. There were different areas within the city where there were accommodation blocks. And I got to choose a weekly price, like a general weekly price between a range. So I chose the cheapest weekly price, and I chose the area that was closest to where I knew I was going to be studying. And my other main thing was that I really wanted it to be self-catered because I really like cooking. And I was really lucky actually with the one that I got. I was in halls, and I got one that was right opposite the student union. So I was really, really close to where everything was going on with uni. So that was really good. But yeah, it was kind of, a lot of the decisions were made for me, but I was still really lucky in where I ended up. But so for me, it was definitely halls. So Abby, where did you go mostly for your weekly student shop?
So my weekly student shop, I mainly went to Aldi, and there were kind of two reasons for that. One, cheap, got to love it. And also it was the closest big shop to me, especially in my second and third year. But also if I needed little bits, there was a Sainsbury's local, which I'd nip into quite a lot. but I couldn't do my whole shop there because it was only a little convenience store. But yeah, mainly Aldi. So Rosa, when you were getting ready to study, revise at uni, where was your go-to spot?
So this changed throughout my degree. So in first year, I was very much the kind of person who would go and sit in a coffee shop with my books open and my chai latte, and then I wouldn't do any work, which wasn't great. But I realized very quickly that a coffee shop for me was actually not that great an environment. So it changed, and I started to go instead to the library. I had my favorite spot, which was right next to all of the books that I needed, because I did English and classical studies at uni. So really a like book heavy. So I needed to be near all the resources that were available to me. And yeah, it really, as I went through, it changed a lot, because I tried to test out different areas where it might be best for me to work. And I found that the library, and in the end, was a really good space for me. And they did have a cafe at the bottom of the library, so I was still able to get a latte, but potentially in a bit more of a break time rather than all the time.
So now on screen, you will see the different levels of education, and you might be able to identify where you are in this so far. So for example, if you are taking your A-levels or you're at college and doing BTECs or the equivalent, you might be at level 3, looking at moving up to levels 4, 5 and 6. So as you can see, when we get to level 4, there is loads of different ways that you can reach level 6, which is a full degree. So one way that you might go might be you might go to university and get your degree that way. But other ways that you can go is by getting a foundation degree, which you could maybe get at college or at a university. You can get a degree through doing a degree or higher apprenticeship, or you can do BTEC qualifications, which are also equivalent to a degree. So you can see that there's loads of ways that you can get to that place. And when we look even further up to level 7 and 8, that is going to be more like your master's degrees, your PhDs. There is loads of ways up to get to that point within your education. So you might be able to identify the route that you want to take, or there might be routes on here that you hadn't even considered yet. So it's always worth knowing what you can do.
So now we're going to look a bit about things that are good to consider when you're preparing for higher education. We're going to talk a bit about kind of universities and what to look for in a university, but a lot of the things we're talking about will also apply to higher and degree apprenticeships, in the way that you choose your course, in the way that you decide about where you want to live, all of those kind of considerations. So I am now going to change my screen share to share this instead. So here is the UCAS website. Now, as you saw on that slide before, some really good things to consider are firstly the course. So you can start researching courses through the UCAS website. So if this is just the homepage, if you go to courses, it will already be on undergraduate. And if you're not sure yet where you want to study, you can just leave this as optional. And say, for example, you were wanting to research courses in English. So if you just put in English here. And this is really good, because I think often you're told just to research things, but you're not told kind of how. And so, yeah, we're just going to kind of go through the steps that it takes to kind of start researching a course and then the university that that course belongs to. So as you can see, we have all of these options for English degrees, and not just English, but English and French, drama and English, English and education, because English is a really good subject for doing with another subject, like I did at uni. So I did English and classical studies, so which meant that I was what we call a joint honours student. So I just did 2 subjects rather than just 1. So say you're looking at all, because at the side here it has all of the different universities that offer these courses. So Bangor offers stuff in English language and literature, English literature with language, but that's I'm not sure how that's different, but so they offer loads of different things. So say you were thinking you'd heard about the University of Birmingham and you thought that might be quite a good option. You see here that they do loads of different options with English, but you think, okay, for the moment, I'm going to stick with just plain old English. So this then takes you to this page, which has a bit more information about the course. It tells you what type of qualification you're going to be doing. It tells you whereabouts in the university you're going to be studying, because also within universities, there are loads of different locations. For example, I know I have a friend who did law at York University, and her campus was quite far out of the main city. So it meant that for her, she needed to find accommodation that was near that campus, so she didn't have to spend as much on travel costs. It will also tell you your start date, the study mode, so this is a full-time degree, and how long it's going to take. Now on this page, it gives you a bit of a summary about the course. It gives you a little bit of information about the modules. It tells you how to apply and entry requirements, gives you lots of kind of general information, but it's actually not exhaustive in what it's showing you. A little bit about tuition fees and things. So the best thing you can do is if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, it tells you, so this is kind of the map of Birmingham, but here it says visit our course page. Now this is the best place you can go to then take you to the actual University of Birmingham course page for English. And this will show you even more information. So you can watch this YouTube clip about English literature graduates. You can look at what they say for teaching and assessment, and kind of what support they're going to offer you in stuff about kind of wellbeing officers and things, which is really useful. So there's so much more information here that you'll be able to look at. It looks at your employability and also your entry requirements. So these are all really, really useful things that will give you lots more detail about this course at Birmingham. Say from there you wanted to say, okay, so I like the look of this course, but what about the university itself? So even if you go to the University of Birmingham homepage, it already comes up straight away with a virtual tour of their campus. So you can immediately start looking at what campus life might be like at Birmingham University of Birmingham. If you were looking specifically for things about being an undergraduate in Birmingham, then you would go to study and then down, and it talks specifically here about undergraduate study. So that's the one that you want if you're going to university and it's your first time, it's your first degree. So if you go down here, it has course search. We already know we want to do English, but you can go down further and it shows you about student experience. So that'll tell you about all the clubs and societies you can join, which Abby's going to talk about a bit later. And it also shows you about accommodation, which is the next thing you might want to start considering. So here on this accommodation page, it takes you through all the different types of accommodation that they offer. So for example, if you know that you're going to be an undergrad, you know that you don't mind that much about bathrooms, you might want to share bathroom, you might want to go self-catered, you're not really sure about any of the villages yet, that's fine. And say you were looking for kind of that kind of price range, you could have a search about what offers they're going to be, and you can start looking at that as well. So looking at all the facilities available to you. We just thought we'd show you this kind of thing because oftentimes when you're asked to research it, it can seem, the university websites and UCAS can seem like a bit of a rabbit hole. There are so many different places to go. So this is a really useful tool to come back to learn how you can use these websites to the best of your ability to be able to navigate them properly. I will now go back to the presentation. There we are.
So we've heard a little bit about the university route that you can take and touched a little bit on higher and degree apprenticeships, but we're going to talk about these in a little bit more detail now. So a higher or degree apprenticeship is where you get a job with an employer, and as part of that job, you also study towards a higher qualification. So that will be kind of degree level. This is often done in partnership with a university associated with it. So you will spend the majority of your time doing paid work and getting experience in that specific industry. But you will spend a little bit of time studying as well. So this could be on day release to a university, or it could be just studying at home. So degree apprenticeships are offered by many people, and some of the ones that you might be familiar with across our areas are aerospace and engineering types, which can be offered by like BAE Systems, Rolls-Royce, also healthcare apprenticeships, for example, nursing. This is offered by the NHS and Bupa. And then we've also got some nuclear apprenticeships, which are offered by places like EDF Energy and Sellafield. So as I've kind of said as well, universities are usually twinned with these apprenticeships. So the employer and the university will be working together to provide your qualification. And for the engineering ones, you can see below, this is kind of offered by UCLan, Lancaster University and the University of West England. This will all be sorted for you, so you won't need to apply for the university as well. You will just apply for the apprenticeship, and this is usually done through the company website. But you can also find these on the National Careers website as well if you want to check them out.
So whilst you're at higher education, or whilst you're in higher education, there are so many other opportunities outside of your studies to gain more work experience. And a really useful tool here is the careers service as part of your university or as part of your apprenticeship provider. They will have information about how you can improve your employability. And a really great way to do this is by becoming a student ambassador. Now, Abby, you were a student ambassador. So could you tell us a little bit about the role, about how you kind of got into it and what it involved?
Yeah, definitely. So whilst I was at uni, I was a student ambassador, and there was different types of student ambassador. So there was specific student ambassadors for your course. So you could kind of be a representative for your course, or just kind of more general student ambassadors for the university as a whole. So I was one of these more general student ambassadors, and my specific role was giving campus tours and accommodation tours on open days and interview days, which you guys might be starting to go to now. So what my role would be to do would represent the uni and be kind of a smiling face for people to come round. So any questions, you could come up to me and ask me, any queries. Just if you want to find anything out, you could just go to your student ambassador who would be stationed around the university. For me, I had to wear a big red coat and a rucksack with a big red flag on the back, so you couldn't miss me. And you just come and ask. So I really enjoyed this role because firstly, it let me meet other students who were already studying at Leeds, who I hadn't come across before. But it also meant that I could kind of share my experiences with potential students, because I remember when I was going around for my interview and for the open days, it seemed so daunting and scary. But talking to student ambassadors really helped me feel more comfortable. So being able to do that for other people was really nice. I would really recommend trying to get a job as a student ambassador because it allows you to get that little bit of extra income and represent your university. But also it was on a very casual basis. So it would kind of only be a couple of times every few months. So it wasn't like a major commitment, which you may not want whilst you're studying.
As well as work experience, there are really great opportunities to travel whilst at university. So this could be by taking part in a study abroad program. It could be as part of volunteering. There are loads of organisations that work with universities to find volunteers for your university holidays, because you have quite long holidays, which might be a bit different if you're doing an apprenticeship. But there's also the Turing scheme, which is the brand new scheme that the government have announced, which is a way of studying abroad that's going to have loads of funding given to it, and is going to mean that you can go and travel worldwide to complete your studies. We actually have a great news article written about this on our website. As you can see at the top there, peeping out is Alan Turing, who's the namesake of this program. And I'd really recommend you checking it out and seeing if the universities or institutions that you're interested in have any involvement in the Turing scheme. It's not just for university students, it's also got funding there for people on vocational courses and people who want work experience rather than simply just studying abroad. So really do consider it and check it out if traveling is something you'd be interested in doing whilst at higher education.
So as we've kind of talked about a little bit, even though you're going to university to study, there are loads of things that you can do outside of your study as well. So we've talked a little bit about part-time jobs and about traveling. But one of the things that might be a selling point for you when going to university is the social aspect of university. you're moving away somewhere away from home with loads and loads of new people to maybe a big city, and that is a really exciting time, but it can also be a little bit daunting. And one thing that I would really recommend before you start university, once you've confirmed your choice, is to look on Facebook for university groups. For example, when I started my degree in 2017, there was a Leeds Freshers 2017 group, which I joined, and people had posted in it like, is anyone doing this course? Is anyone staying in this halls of residence? And from that, you could be added to group chats and kind of start to get to know the people who might be on your course or you might be living with. And that is how I ended up finding my first year flatmates, was on one of these pages. We all posted that we're in this specific flat and we put a group chat together. So we kind of knew each other before we even got there, which was really, really nice and made the transition a little bit smoother. But as well as that, once you get to university, there's going to be loads more chances for you to meet new people. And one way you can do this is through societies. So as soon as I got to university, I joined the Biology Society because I studied biology. And this society just threw a load of social events where you'd get to meet the people on your course. I think the first one they threw was a Battle of the Sciences, which was a really cool event. It was a night out with like kind of beer pong and that kind of thing, with all the different science committees. So it was a really great way to start making friends with course mates and stuff like that. But also when you get there, they'll kind of have these freshers fairs, which is where all the societies will be in like a big hall or outdoor gazebo or something like that, with leaflets and whatnot. And you can go to give it a go events. So this means you can kind of have a taste of what the society might be like without actually joining it, which is a really good way to see if you want to join a society. So there also might be a lot of social areas around your university campus. One really, really good one that Rose has already mentioned a little bit is the Students' Union. So the Students' Union in Leeds often would host social events, like they had concerts on for discounted prices. So it's a really great way to be able to get out and maybe see bands for a cheaper price than you would be able to normally. But as well as that, you might just want to explore your new environment. Just go out and have an explore around the city and see if you can find new places that you might enjoy going. For example, in Leeds, there was a lot of little independent cafes, which I really liked. But also what was great about Leeds was that it was a big city, but just not that far out, there was like walks that you could go on and fields and a bit of countryside. So exploring that in your new city can be a really great way to take your mind off study and maybe meet some new friends in the meantime as well. So we're going to move on to some questions that we've prepared here for you. So the first one we've got is, did you move away from home and how did you find it? So Rosa, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, so I did move away from home. I moved all the way down to Bristol, which is about 4-5 hours on the train. So it was really far away. I went to an open day for Bristol and loved it. I went with a friend and her mum, and but they were going somewhere else, so I had to get the train back by myself, and it meant that I had about an hour or two where I was just alone walking around the city. And it was a really sunny day as well, I remember, and I had to walk to the train station, which was on the other side of town, and it really kind of, I don't know, it was just such a vibrant city. And so that really influenced why I chose there. And I found it quite difficult, I won't lie, in my first term, especially because I was so far away and I was hearing about all my friends who'd gone to university or had stayed at home. So my friends who stayed at home were having a great time because there were quite a few of them that stayed there to either have a gap year or to do an apprenticeship. And it meant that they were all still able to hang out. And I was the furthest away. I had friends at York and Leeds as well, and they were able to get home quite easily. So being the only one that was quite far away was a bit difficult at first, but I managed, once I started to kind of get into university life and started to make friends, that really was the main thing that made me kind of be okay with the fact that I was so far away. And I won't lie, I did miss the northern accent. That was hard, but the southwest accent's pretty nice as well. But yeah, it was lovely coming home for Christmas and stuff. But yeah, in the end, I really kind of established myself in Bristol and started to consider it like a second home, which was really nice. Yeah. How did you find living in halls, Abby?
Living in halls, I really enjoyed. I think
Okay.
the first thing that I'd say about it was when I initially got there and my parents had left and I was sat in my room on my own, I was a little bit like, what now? You know, I'm here in this room by myself. It doesn't feel like home yet. It just feels like a room. That was quite difficult. But once I opened my door and I propped it open, and all my flatmates started doing the same, and kind of just forcing yourself out there and out of your comfort zone, going into the communal spaces, sitting there. Even if you're sitting there by yourself for a little bit, someone's going to come down and talk to you. I think, yeah. So I found it hard at first, because it was just such a shock. But it was also so exciting, like living in this city, living with people my own age. And I think I settled into it quite quickly. The halls that I lived in were really good. So I lived in a 9-person flat. So it was a quite big flat. There was lots of people around all the time. So I was never particularly lonely. But what was also really great was I had a load of course mates that lived in the same accommodation as me. So it was nice to have them two kind of groups there. Yeah, how did you find living in halls, Rosa?
Yeah, quite similar, to be honest. I really remember one of my friends, we were in halls together in first year, and I remember the first day I kind of came in to start like checking out where my cupboards were and stuff in the kitchen, and he kind of walked in, and kind of after we said hello, we were like, should we go and like knock on everyone's door to see if they want to come and hang out in the kitchen or something? So we went round everywhere knocking on everyone's door to be like, hello.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a very different living situation. Obviously, I was also in a 9-person flat. I had some friends at Bristol who were in 16 people flats, which was, I think, was pretty intense. Their kitchens were massive, but still. But yeah, I found it quite nice to. We were quite good, I think, as an accommodation block for. We had like a big group chat, but then we'd all, in our Freshers Week, we all took turns to host a prees, because obviously Freshers Week is, you might be going out and things, and we were also, so every night a different floor would host the prees, and so everyone would kind of flock to that floor, and it was really nice.
Yeah. So as well, Rosa, how did you find making new friends at university?
So I did have friends in my halls who were lovely, who I ended up living with in my second year as well, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit in the last question. But I would say mostly I made friends through my course. I was really lucky. I found it quite difficult at first because I was joint honours, so it meant that I'd spend some of my time with English and then some of my time with classics, but there were some of my friends who were in every single class together, and I didn't really have that. But classics especially is a really, really small course at Bristol, and so that was quite nice for kind of starting to recognise faces and stuff as we went through. But I made most of my friends through societies, so I did a lot of performing arts at uni, and that was really nice for kind of meeting people from different years as well. That was really nice, that kind of speaking to people who were in their final year and being like, oh, well, I'm really not sure about this, or I don't know about this, and having them be like, oh, don't worry about it, you're going to be fine, was really, really nice, I found. How about you?
Yeah, so I would say pretty similar. I think making friends, I mainly did make friends off my course.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the nature of my course, doing a science course, I was in pretty much every day 9 till 5, with the same people. It was a massive course as well. So yeah, I would kind of find the people that I like to sit with and continue to sit with them. I think as well, because of my course, we did labs, and the majority of people that I became close friends with were people that I sat on tables with in labs. So that was a really great way for me to make friends. But also by posting in group chats, that's the main way I kind of got to know people. For example, on my first day of uni, I had a 9 a.m. lecture. So I just put in my halls chat, is anyone walking to uni at this time, going to this place? And 2 people responded. And from that, we walked to uni together every single day, every day. And that is kind of how I started to make friends, was just putting myself out there. But then again, I would say, especially with the people that I lived with in halls, I made really close friends with the majority of them and kept in touch with the majority of them all the way through uni. So yeah, I think it is just who you put with and when, and also kind of forcing yourself just to be out of your comfort zone a little bit and, put yourself out there to people.
So how did you find budgeting whilst at uni?
So I found budgeting quite difficult, especially in first year. You get all this money come into your account and it seems like a massive, massive amount of money. And once rent's gone out, you might not have that much left, is something that I quickly found. So for me, budgeting at uni, I worked the summer before I went to uni, so saved up a lot that way, which I would really recommend doing because it took the pressure off whilst I was actually there. And then I was lucky in that I had a part-time job when I came home, in a restaurant that I work at. And I would just work all my holidays home from uni to kind of make up a little bit of money. You kind of get into the swing of it. It's one of them things that it's just difficult the first time. After a while, you will kind of pick up where you're spending money, what you can afford to do and what you kind of can't afford to do. But I think the best way to do is kind of write down what you've got going in, what you've got going out, and see what you've got left over to do things that you enjoy. What about you, Rosa? How was budgeting for you?
Yeah, I found it, I was really lucky. I had a bursary from my uni, so they had a Bristol bursary which was given out, and I got some of that, which was really, really helpful. And definitely do look into kind of scholarships and bursaries and things at uni, because that was a lifesaver, having that extra money. I found it difficult at first. I think I was the same as you. I think part of your first year at university, you're just basically learning how to live by yourself and live independently, was something I really found. Kind of, even though I was able to cook and things like that, and I enjoyed it, cooking for myself every night and planning that I needed to cook my lunch and things to take with me, was something that now feels pretty natural and fine. But when I was kind of 18, I was so just not used to that, having to do my own laundry, all of those kind of things. And I think budgeting comes into that as well, that you're just kind of learning how that's going to work for you. And I think the more prep you can do before you go to uni, at kind of thinking about, like you were saying, kind of what you've got left over after all the essentials have gone out, I think is really, really helpful. So finally, Abby, what was finding a house like for you after your first year? Did you stay in halls or did you move out?
So after my first year, I decided to find a student house. There is a big student population in Leeds in somewhere called Hyde Park. So naturally, that was kind of where we looked at for finding somewhere to live. So I ended up living with different people to who I lived with in my first year, just because we were a big flat of 9 and finding a 9-person house it just wasn't happening. So we ended up splitting into 2 kind of groups. And to kind of find it, there will be loads of student letting places around where you live. We literally went into a student letting place and were like, we're looking for a 5-bedroom house. Please, can you give us some options and show us around? And that is how we found ours. We just looked around a load of houses and we were like, yeah, we like this one. It's in our price range. It's a good distance away from uni. We're in the student area, which was important to us. And that's kind of how we went about it. One thing I would recommend is maybe going to Unipol, which is like an agency which provides student houses that are student approved. So if you're struggling to find a letting agency, definitely check out Unipol. What about you, Rosa?
So I moved into flats for my second and third year of uni, which was really nice. I stayed with my flatmates from first year for my second year, and we were quite late in finding a house. We didn't find our house until kind of March time, and we were basically we were trying to resist the pressure to just kind of go for the first thing once we'd decided we were going to live together. And we had a lot of friends that paid quite a lot on kind of rent and things because they were just so keen to get a house by December. But actually we waited and we found one that was a bit further out. It was about a 35-40 minute walk for me into uni, but I was kind of okay with that. I quite like walking, but it was really, really nice. And yeah, it was a really lovely flat that we found, which was quite lucky actually. But it was kind of, we looked on Rightmove and then we eventually went to a lettings agency and looked around a bunch of houses with them. And I found it a bit daunting finding somewhere kind of in the price range, and the whole thing about you've got to do a deposit before you go, and then figuring out bills and things. We cheated. We got a place that was bills included, which was great. And yeah, just trying to figure all of that stuff out. But your students' union will have so many resources for you about how to find accommodation. Even our SU has its own lettings agency, which you could go to, which didn't have any agency fees and provided student-friendly housing, which was really, really useful. And I have quite a few friends that went through SU lettings to be able to find their flat and really enjoyed that experience, because they're kind of it's by students for students. So that might be an option. So you could look into that. But yeah, definitely look on your SU, see what they've got to offer, because there will be a lot of help out there. And that, I think, is the end of our main talk. Thank you so much.
So I think we mentioned a little bit earlier that we have a load of resources available to you that are all available online. So we have some presentations which you can find on our website, which will just give you a little bit of information about certain subjects as you're moving through your education. We also have a load of e-courses available to you as well that you might want to check out. And these will cover stuff like your future, what are the next steps for you, how to communicate confidently, how to write specific documents like a personal statement or maybe even a CV. So you can find them all on our website by heading over to www.hellofuture.ac.uk. Also, when you put in that email address, that website address, sorry, a little chat with us function will come up. So if you have any questions that you'd like to ask us at all, you can click on that chat with us and it will take you to a bunch of profiles and you can choose who you would like to talk to about your questions regarding higher education.
So this event has been put on as part of Hello Future Live. We are a 7-week festival that's happening until the 18th of June. We only have 3 weeks left, which is pretty wild at this point, but the next week's events are all about preparing for virtual fairs and open days. So if you want to make any of them, then we have them on the screen here now. After half term, we're taking a break for half term, and then we've also got study skills happening. So please do check out all of the events, because even if you're watching this on YouTube, there might still be things going on. So do check it out.
And to keep up to date with all of our current events, you can find us on social media. So you can find us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram by typing in @HelloFutureCCOP. And as I've already said, you can head over to our website, www.hellofuture.ac.uk. And by going to any of them, you will be able to see all the things that we're currently doing and keep up to date with the events that we're holding.
And that's it from us. So thank you so much for listening to this talk. We hope it's been useful. Do come and chat with us if you've got any questions, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.